So I'm Dr. Mukta. I'm a pediatric surgeon. So today we will discuss about antenatal hydronephrosis and postnatal management. So already I will not take much of your time. So urinary tract dilatation, these are the few statistics. So urinary tract dilatation is the second most common condition detected prenatally. So it's found in almost 5% of the pregnant females coming to your OPD for the counseling. But out of which almost 80% will have spontaneous resolutions and only 15% will go for a surgical corrections. As it can be seen bilaterally around almost 20 to 50% of the patients. And diagnosis is done around 12th week of a gestational age. So the transient hydronephrosis is the most common cause of antenatally hydronephrosis, which is seen around 40 to 80% of the patients. So whenever a patients come with antenatal counseling, whenever the gynecologist send for antenatal counseling to you, so most of these patients with a mild to moderate hydronephrosis should be counseled that these will be followed up postnatally, and most of this will resolve over a period of a time. Rest other few causes, which are around 20%, which are surgical causes, out of which pelvic ureteric junction obstruction, which is the most common cause of antenatal hydronephrosis. So other causes as obstructive and non-obstructive. In obstructive, most common is, as we discussed, is around 30% is PUJ obstruction, while VUJ obstruction or the megaureter is seen in 3 to 5% of the patients. Multicystic dysplastic kidneys. This is very uncommon, like less than 1% of the patient will come with antenatal diagnosed MCDK. But these patients will have to be followed postnatally because they will technically have only one functioning kidney, as multicystic dysplastic kidneys are non-functioning kidneys. The diagnosis postnatally is confirmed by doing a renogram, which shows as a non-functioning kidneys. Ultrasound will show as a small cysts into the periphery of the kidneys, which are non-communicating with each other. So it is very important to tell the parents that probably that kidney is not functioning, and which has to be confirmed after birth with a ultrasound as well as a renogram, just to document it. Other uncommon causes are ureterocele duplications. PU valve is not very rare also, but that the management and everything will see. Non-obstructive causes are the vesicular reflux and Prune-Bailey, which is very, very rare. Renal cystic disease and megacalciosis are uncommon conditions. So there is a uniform scale of measurement of an hydronephrosis, which is measured as an anterior-posterior diameter of a renal pelvis. So ultrasound is best for diagnosing obstructive diseases like PUJ obstruction, PU valves, but it is not very accurate regarding the vesicourethral reflux. So when we say the patient, the baby has a hydronephrosis, so anything in second trimester, which is more than 4 mm and more than 7 mm in third trimester, will be labeled as an antenatal hydronephrosis. So these are the few numbers which divides them into mild, moderate, and severe. So anything more than 10 mm in second trimester is labeled as a severe hydronephrosis, while in third trimester, which is more than 15 mm. It is a good guide to counsel the parents regarding the postnatal management. So whenever the patient comes to you with third trimester more than 15 mm of diameter of APD diameter, the earlier involvement of a pediatric urologist is advised during this time, because most of these patients will land into surgery. So how we know it is how to follow these patients? So ultrasound will just not show the diameter; it should be look for the structural defects, lower urinary tract obstructions, any renal dysplasia, which are already seen into the TIFA scan during the 16 to 28th week. So in unilateral hydronephrosis, we can advise to just get a one scan during the third trimester. If it's a bilateral or severe hydronephrosis, the patients will be asked to repeat scan every 4 to 6 weekly. And additional parameters which has to be looked into an antenatal scan is oligohydramnios. Is the associated with the dilatation is associated with the oligohydramnios? Is there a dilated thick walled bladder? is there a calaceal dilatation, perinephric urinoma, keyhole signs. All this will diagnose towards a posterior urethral wall, because it's very important to counsel the parents that after baby is born, it will require a ICU stay and will require immediate postnatal investigations as well as probably surgery. And these patients may land up with the urinary ascites after the birth, urinary ascites, uh, severe acidosis, and low, the and will require a surgery like cystoscopy and fulguration, and will have some amount of renal dysplasia, which is like associated with the cortical thinning, poor corticomedullary differentiation, increased echogenicity in renal cyst. If they are associated with all these things and they come to you with the scan, so they have to be explained that this is probably a non-functioning or minimally functioning kidney, and the patient will require a prolonged renal follow-up with the nephrologist. So fetal intervention, it is done in very few centers in India. Most of these are trial basis, but this is more of a theoretical that it is given offered to the patients with the suspected lower urinary tract obstruction, like posterior urethral wall, anterior urethral wall, which are severely obstructed systems. Even if there is a severe, the more patient is diagnosed early during the pregnancy, worse is the prognosis. If the patient is diagnosed less than 27 weeks of the gestational age, the prognosis will be very guarded, because these patients will associated with the severe oligohydramnios, lung hypoplasia. Most of after delivery, they will go into respiratory distress. They will have urinary ascites. So it is offered in those patients which are having a severe developmental problems. Termination is not advisable in any cases except there is a life-threatening anomaly. So these are the options. We can do a vasectocentesis, which shows these are the factors like sodium, calcium. We'll take a diagnostic tap from the fetal bladder and we'll assess for these parameters. If they are fit, patient prognosis is good, so we'll offer a vesicoamniotic shunt or a in utero endoscopic valve ablation, which is done retrogradely, like through the bladder the scope is placed and the valve is fulgurated through the bladder, retrograde. So though we can offer these patients fetal intervention, but the survival will be good. Perinatal survival will be good, but long-term study shows that long-term renal functions are not very much improved in these patients. So in nutshell, antenatal hydronephrosis, if patient comes with the antenatal hydronephrosis, mild hydronephrosis, we'll ask for another scan in third trimester and postnatal scan. And bilateral, if it's there, we'll advise for a scanning at 4 to 5 weeks. So coming to the postnatal management. So once the baby is born, they will have a lot of questions. Now what? So all the patients with antenatal diagnosed hydronephrosis should have an ultrasound. The time of ultrasound is variable. So if the patient is having antenatal severe hydronephrosis with bilateral hydronephrosis associated with the renal dysplasia and all those things, so they should be undergo urgent ultrasonography within 24 to 48 hours to rule out the lower urinary tract obstruction, that is PU wall, and should undergo the micturating cystourethrogram. Otherwise, rest of the all babies should undergo ultrasound after 48, that is between 3 to 7 days of birth. So because their initial dehydration, status of their low urine output and all those things will underestimate the degree of the hydronephrosis. So not very severe, mild to moderate degree hydronephrosis, they should be advised to have an ultrasound KUB at 3 to 7 days of life. So this is the fetal Society of Fetal Urology has graded it into 4 grades. So grade 1 and grade 2 are the mild hydronephrosis. Grade 3 is a dilatation of major and minor calyces. These are the major calyces and these are the minor calyces showing the dilatation. While in grade 4, another thing is added is parenchymal thinning. So it's a severe hydronephrosis. So when we cause a postnatal hydronephrosis, if anything which is SFU grade 1 or renal diameter of more than 7 mm will be labeled as a hydronephrosis. So why we need to know all these diameters? Because prognosis is associated with all these diameters. So less than 12 mm will have a 98% resolution, spontaneous resolution, and favorable prognosis. More than 12 mm, only 51% will resolve, and they have more tendency to go for surgery. So when the patient comes to you with all, we have few case scenarios I would like to discuss because these are more practical approach. So we get a ultrasound done at 5 to 7 days of life, and one of these scenarios will have these scenarios. So there is either no hydronephrosis and ultrasound is normal. There is a unilateral hydronephrosis, either a bilateral hydronephrosis, a unilateral hydronephrosis with hydroureter, or bilateral HNHU. So if the scan is normal, postnatal scan is normal, so we will tell them, okay, it's normal, but we will like to follow up them at 3 months as well as 6 months of age, because a lot of these patients who has a normal postnatal normal scan will again may have a transient hydronephrosis or may have a recurrence hydronephrosis. So we need to know a scan at 3 months and 6 months of age. If these two scans are normal, we can label them as a transient hydronephrosis and rule out major obstructive urinary diseases. But still, this with the scans are normal, there are 25% of the patients will end up having a VUR, vesico-urethral reflux. So we have to explain them that there is a chances whenever the patient having urinary infection, they have to follow up. But there is a no role, there is no advisory, or there is no proper guidelines for the using of chemoprophylaxis in normal ultrasounds. So isolated hydronephrosis, this is the most common thing we see in as a OP basis. The patient will have a suspected PUJ obstructions. So these are the diameters. As a surgeon, we divide them into mild, moderate, and severe hydronephrosis. So anything which is less than 20 mm will be labeled as mild. Anything more than 20 ml will be moderate to severe. So more than 2 centimeter will definitely require probably surgery. Less than 2 centimeter will require a very close follow-up. So mild hydronephrosis will follow up them at the USG at the 3 months and at the 6 months. If they are decreasing trend, we will repeat ultrasound 6 monthly till age of 4 or till they become normal. Okay, if the normal ultrasound comes, so then we have to ask them to repeat a scan after 6 months just to assure that it's a normal ultrasound and there is no recurrence of hydronephrosis. So moderate to severe hydronephrosis, we have to confirm anything which is more than 2 centimeter. We'll definitely have to undergo further testing with the diuretic renogram, which will show the proper obstruction, and they will undergo the laparoscopic pyeloplasties. MCU is not recommended in most of the PUJ obstructions unless and otherwise they have a history of urinary tract infection. So we will offer only in very severe cases or in the patients which are having history of urinary tract infection. Chemoprophylaxis are given only to those with a moderate to severe hydronephrosis which are associated with the vesico-urethral reflux. So next case scenario is bilateral hydronephrosis without hydroureter. That means patients will have bilateral PUJ obstructions. Most of these patients will have a mild bilateral PUJ obstruction like 6 mm to 7 mm pelvic diameter on both the sides. So the MCU is done just to rule out VUR. Ultrasound follow-up is done every monthly for 3 months. And if it's stable, it's not increasing or going down, then we can ask them to get a 3 monthly ultrasound at least till 2 years of age. And if the diameter is progressive diameter is there, then we have to definitely refer them for a diuretic renogram. And if there is a bilateral PUJ obstruction, we will operate on the worst affected site first to preserve the function. So third case scenario is unilateral hydroureter with hydronephrosis. So possibility as most commonly is vesico-urethral reflux, megaureter, ureterocele, or duplex kidney. This is the IVP of a patients who are recurrent UTI. So this is the IVP showing the ureterocele. This is the adder head appearance. So this is the ureterocele. So MCUG is done to rule out VUR. Chemoprophylaxis is offered in the patients with the VUR, and ureterocele patient will require transurethric incision of ureteroceles. Around 40% patients who undergo ureterocele incision will end up having the reflux on that side. So most of these patients will require a chemoprophylaxis post-operatively. So another last case scenario is bilateral hydronephrosis with bilateral hydroureter. Most likely diagnosis is posterior urethral wall. If the patient is also have oligohydramnios, thick bladder wall, perinephric collections, so definitely prenatal diagnosis of posterior urethral wall can be made. Another is VUR, which are high grade, and bilateral VUG obstruction, which is unlikely, or bilateral megaureter, which are less common. Bilateral ureterosis is also seen in these patients, which can cause bilateral hydronephrosis, but those are rare conditions. So these are the patients, these are the set of patients we will definitely would like to have an ultrasound within first 24 to 48 hours of the birth. So if the patient is suspected to have a posterior urethral wall, best to catheterize the patients immediately after birth and monitor the urine output, because this patient will definitely have a post-obstructive diuresis, which the urine output can go around 2 to almost 4 to 5 ml per kg per hour. So these patients will require a lot of fluid management, acidosis management, and the surgery will be done only after the stabilization. MCU is definitely needed to rule out the posterior urethral wall. Renogram is nothing urgent to do a renogram in all these patients. Renogram common age is 4 to 8 weeks when the kidneys are mature enough to excrete the dry. Antibiotic prophylaxis will be required in all these patients. And those which are operated and still come to they have recurrent UTIs, those patients will be offered circumcisions, because 80% of the patients will be benefited by the circumcision. These are the clinical pictures. This is the patient with the bilateral antenatal diagnosed HNHU, which are postnatally done a MCU, just showing grade 3, grade 4 VUR. And this is antenatal diagnosed patient with the thick water bladder wall, perinephric urinoma. So MCU is showing dilated posterior urethra, thick bladder wall. There is a perinephric collection that is probably because of the rupture of one of the calyces on the right side. And this is dilated minor calyces. So the ureter is severely dilated and tortuous. So in VUR, should we start immediate chemoprophylaxis after birth? So there are no clear guidelines for the low grade of VUR, like grade 2, grade 1, grade 2. But in India, as a medical practitioners, we definitely start all the patients because of their low compliance, their unregular follow-ups. So it's better to start all of them to the low dose of chemoprophylaxis at night. Less than 3 months of age, we can start with the amoxicillin. Then after that, cephalexin, cotrimoxazole, and nitrofurantoin can be used. Duration of the chemoprophylaxis is based on the grade of reflux. Like if it's higher grade, we will definitely will give them a chemoprophylaxis till they do not have any urinary infections. If they have breakthrough infections, then they have to be offered surgery. So this is the flow chart, or this is the summary of what we have discussed now. So if any patients should be divided according to dilatation, mild, moderate, or severe, and depending on that, we can further send them for the further workup. So I wanted to discuss about renograms. So we will offer renogram to moderate to severe unilateral or bilateral hydronephrosis, like grade 3, grade 4 dilatations or AP diameter more than 10 mm. So renogram will offer differentiate between the obstructive and non-obstructive hydronephrosis, if the patient will require just follow-up or will require surgery. It basically estimate the relative function of both the kidneys and helps us as a surgeon. It helps us to time the surgery. Okay, and the pre-operative and obviously the pre-op and post-operative comparison of the renal functions. So most commonly used renograms is DTPA and EC. MAC3 is not done in India, so we'll discuss only DTPA and EC scan. DTPA is a compound which is less plasma protein bound and it's cleared by glomerular filtration. So the disadvantage of DTPA is there is a poor parenchymal visualization. The suboptimal in poorly functioning kidneys, preterms with the chronic kidney diseases, it's not a very good scan to know the function of the kidney. So as a surgeons, we definitely would like to go for an EC scan to know, because the EC and MAC3 is they're bound to the plasma proteins and they're cleared by tubular secretions. So the peripheral activity, that is a greater renal extraction and higher kidney to background ratio as compared to DTPA scan. So this is the curve interpretation. This is the normal this is a normal curve. So it will peak it within 5 minutes and slowly start coming down. But in obstructed, after diuretic injection, it should be, this is the diuretic injection, so it should just come down. So in obstruction, it will just have a plateau like this. So anything which is, this is the T half, this is the half time to reach the half of the activity. So normally anything which is more than 20 minutes, it's labeled as obstructed, definitely obstructed kidney. Anything less than 10 minutes is normal. 10 to 20, these are the patients which will require a follow-up. If the subsequent scan shows a deterioration in the function, if subsequent scan show T half more than 20 minutes, definitely require surgeries. 10 to 15 or 20 will be require close follow-up. So what are the indications for surgery in all these patients? So worsening of hydronephrosis on serial ultrasound, that is AP diameter more than 2.5 centimeters. Differential function in a single renal scan, which is less than 35%, or there is a decrease in function by 10% on a repeat scan. So suppose if the patient comes to you with a 40% of the function and the next scan shows 30% of the function, so definitely there is a 10% decrease in the function, so definitely requires surgery. So another thing is, as we discussed, in T half, anything more than 20 minutes, this suggests you have a significant obstruction and hold up into the significant hold up of the diuretics there. And in VUR patients, these are the criteria, like more than 3 breakthrough UTIs in female patients, and in male patients will definitely more than 2 breakthrough UTIs will require reimplantations and development of a new scars. So surgical treatment is, as we know, VUJ obstruction, nowadays gold standard is lapelloplasty. VUJ obstruction, we will observe them and offer a ureterostomy initially just to decompress the system, because in less than 1 year old babies, it's not very good plan to do a reimplantation. In VUR, all the VUR patients will be observed with the antibiotic prophylaxis till 1 year of age. And if it's still persisting, high grade development of new scars, development of breakthrough UTIs, then surgery, reimplantation will be offered to them. In low grade VUR, the Difflex injection can be offered. And posterior urethral valve definitely requires cystoscopy and primary fulguration. So in conclusion, all these patients need a close follow-up, because ultimate aim is to preserve the renal functions. So prevention of UTIs is very important. A proper counseling of all these patients who comes to you prenatally, and have to be explained the course of actions in next few months. Early involvement of pediatric urologists is always helpful, and the most important thing is to rule out the lower urinary tract obstruction at the earliest. The patients which are having a vesicourethral reflux will need a regular monitoring of a blood pressure, creatinine and bicarbonate levels. BP monitoring is very important. Every 6 monthly, the patient with the VUR who are on antibiotic prophylaxis will require a BP monitoring. These are the few articles, these are the references, these are the very established guidelines. So by Aditi Sinha and Sharma for the postnatal, these are the 2 journals which are widely accepted as a urologist. And that's all. If you have any questions, I will like to answer them. No questions. Yeah. So there's a question, is it necessary to refer if APE postnatal diameter is less than 12 to pediatric surgeon, and how often to do USG? So as we discussed, less than 12 mm will definitely, a single visit to a pediatric urologist definitely help, because if the diameter goes on increasing, so suddenly they will come with 1.5 or 2 centimeter and you're sending them directly to the urologist for surgery, it comes as a shock to them. So it's always advisable to send to them as a surgeon as a just for counseling. So if and how often to do a USG? If it's 12 millimeter, yes, definitely 3 monthly ultrasound will definitely help. Chemoprophylaxis, next question is chemoprophylaxis till what age for grade 2, grade 3 VUR? So most of this VUR, grade 2, grade 3 VUR if the patient doesn't have any breakthrough UTIs, so we can continue the prophylaxis till age 4 or 5. VUR has a natural tendency to resolve on its own by 4 or 5 years of age. So if the patient doesn't have any breakthrough UTIs, is maintaining BP, growth is fine, there is not a single episode of breakthrough UTIs. So these patients can be managed till 4 years of age with the antibiotic prophylaxis, but definitely which is persisting beyond age 4 or 5 will definitely require reimplantation. Or grade 2, we can offer them a deflux also. So deflux grade 2, in some cases of very few cases of grade 3, we can offer a Duflex injection. What is the treatment of grade 5 UR at birth? So all the patients with any grade, irrespective of grade, will have an antibiotic prophylaxis till age of 1 year minimum. So all these patients will be given antibiotic prophylaxis till at least 1 year of age. If the patients still have recurrent UTI, first thing will less than 1 year of age will offer a circumcision, which helps to reduce the UTI in almost 80% of the patients. And beyond 1 year of age, we'll definitely do a early reimplantation in this patient. What is the duration of chemoprophylaxis in VUR without, let's say we discuss the same thing, up to 4 years of age, we can safely give them chemoprophylaxis without any complication. So what is the treatment of breakthrough UTI even on antibiotic prophylaxis? The breakthrough UTI is defined as the patient is already on antibiotic. These are the culture positive UTIs. With the fever, febrile culture positive UTIs are the breakthrough UTIs. So if the patient is a male patient, we'll definitely offer a circumcision. Of a female patient, earlier implantation will be. Like more than 3 breakthrough UTIs will require a female patient to undergo implantation, or if a male is there, we'll offer a circumcision first and then surgery later. Why we don't do surgery in less than 1 year is mainly because the bladder is too small. So it's not, the recurrence rate or failure of reimplantation are very high before 1 year of age. So it's best to avoid the implantation before 1 year. So drug of choice for prophylaxis. So amoxicillin is best to start with for less than 3 months of age. Then Sporidex drops as the safest one and is easily available. So we are using Sporidex drops in almost all age and all babies. There is another question: if the postnatal diameter is less than 10, should we refer? Less than 10 usually doesn't require any special management. It's a close follow-up is more than enough. The 3 monthly ultrasound should be enough for these patients. If yes, if it's definitely increasing diameter, then you should. So after reimplantation also we have to continue prophylaxis. Yes, we have to continue prophylaxis at least for 6 months to 1 year of after the reimplantation, because after immediate after reimplantation we will do an MCUG after 6 months of a surgery. If it shows resolution of reflux, then definitely we can safely stop the prophylaxis. Is it normal for a child to have an intermittent stream frequency more than 20 per day in a VUR child? Yes, it is possible. VUR with the high grade reflux patient will have a frequency of urination. Basically, in older child who are toilet trained, so we teach them to timely void and double voiding. Timely voiding means every 2 hours we have to tell them to go and void, which is possible only in toilet trained babies. So we will tell them to keep a diary, urinary diary, and every 2 hours they have to void and they have to double void. Double void in the sense, once they void, after 10 minutes they have to again void, because what happens once they start straining, a lot of urine goes reflux into the kidneys. So after 10 minutes we'll have to tell them to re-void. So this is the like double voiding and timely voiding. It's most important to avoid the infection in this VUR child. Patients with associated with the PU posterior urethral wall and reflux have difficult time, because all these patients will have definitely have some associated VUR. the bladder capacity is very small and non-compliant bladder. So these patients will require CIC. I think we should take this as a last question. For a grade 3 VUR, doing VUR is enough. Renogram is not being done in USA. So grade 3 VUR without any infection will not require any specific renograms, but if has a history of UTI, so it's always better to know a baseline kidney function and baseline scan. The only reason we get a renogram done is to know the baseline function of these patients. But grade 3 VUR is a borderline VUR without maintaining on antibiotic prophylaxis, should not need not to go undergo a renogram. Higher grade definitely will require a baseline function because development of new scar is an indication for surgery. So grade 1, grade 2, I think VUR, we can take another session in next time because VUR is an extensive topic. We cannot just discuss in 2 or 3 slides. So there are a lot of questions we can answer. So because most of these questions I can see is only on VUR. So definitely I like to answer all these questions in next. We can take it as a detailed presentation for VUR. That's all. Thank you for being there.